Hey everyone, welcome back to the Bullet Train Dash here, and today we are finally getting around to answering some questions from all of you viewers in celebration of the 100 subscribers we got. Well, actually it's almost been a couple of weeks now, because you guys we're actually up to I think 115, 116, we're rising on up there. I think the excitement for getting into Legacy has started building that up, but that aside, we're going to go through the questions. Had a few of y'all ask some questions. Some of you asked several questions. Some of you only asked one. We're going to answer all the ones I saw up to the time of recording this. So if you asked a question, good chance it's getting answered if it was up before Saturday. And if it comes up on Saturday, well, I'm still going to be editing this video. I can always add a few more. So that being said, we'll start with a couple easy ones, and let's dive right in. So the first question we have here comes from our viewer Infinite Improbability. I believe I got that right. He's asking, would you rather fight one horse-sized duck or 100 duck-sized horses? And that is a solid starting question, I feel. I have the option of a massive duck barreling down on me or a ton of adorable little horses. I'm going to go with the horses, straight up. And the entire thinking behind that is, a horse is easy to kick, a duck-sized horse, I should say, easy to kick away, and I'm assuming this fight's to the death. Kick them away. They don't have grabbers or any sort of claws, so they can't climb. So they're just going to gather around your feet, so you just kind of walk and kick away, you're good. But ducks are mean, and a horse-sized duck, I keep saying ducked. Duck is just something I do not want to ever have to. I don't want to fight a duck-sized duck, much less a horse-sized duck. So I think of the two options I have here, I'm going to have to go with horse-sized ducks, or duck-sized horses. 100 duck-sized horses, because I feel I can take that on, and up until the fight, it would be adorable. Our next question is from viewer, and I hope I say not just his name, or his or her name, but all names correctly. Sten Bender, who asks if I'm going to be playing any Starcraft 1 custom campaigns. I don't know. Maybe. I'll be honest, I prefer Starcraft 2. Starcraft 1 was an interesting experience and definitely a iconic game of its time, but having played the two of them, I feel Starcraft 2 just plays better. Pretty much every issue I had with Starcraft 1, Starcraft 2 addresses. That doesn't say anything negative about Starcraft 1. It fit what it was trying to do, and it did it very well, and the people who love Starcraft 1, I totally get it. The love and respect that game gets and admiration that game gets, I totally understand. But as I said often during my StarCraft 1 and Brood War Let's Play, the pathing in that game is so atrocious it really hurts the experience for me. So I may not be trying very many StarCraft 1 custom campaigns, but if there's any custom campaign that's nothing but the little Diablo style missions where you have a small elite task force and you're working your way through, or has several of those, possibly. I am not against the idea of StarCraft 1 custom campaigns. I currently don't have any plans for that. If I find one or people suggest them and they look interesting to me, I'll certainly do it. After StarCraft 2 Wings of Liberty, I've already got plans on the next, or not Wings of Liberty, Legacy of the Void, I've got plans for what we're doing past that. Obviously, we're doing Nova Ops, which I just bought today to get ready for. But I also have additional plans for both StarCraft and non-StarCraft related content, which will actually some future questions will bring up as well. But yeah, ultimate answer to the question, am I going to play StarCraft 1 custom campaigns? Not currently looking at it, but I'm not against it in the future. I just got to find a custom campaign that looks super interesting to me for me to dive into. So there you go. So next up, we have about 5 questions from viewer The Jarago, who starts out congratulating me for getting to 100 plus subscribers, which is awesome. I appreciate it. Thank you very much. Thanks to all of you, not just the ones who I've answered questions for, but everyone who's viewing this, even if you're not a subscriber, thank you for checking out the channel, and hopefully you enjoy everything you've seen thus far. If you aren't a subscriber, think about subscribing. With that out of the way, his first question here, I say again, assuming his first question is, I know that you're mostly interested in StarCraft campaigns. Would you consider taking a look at multiplayer after you finish campaigns and possibly achievement hunt and stuff like that? So, I've had a lot of people asking me, hey, you should try multiplayer. Hey, really go for multiplayer. Are you thinking about doing multiplayer? So, I don't promise a time frame, but I will try multiplayer once I completely finish the single player campaigns. Going back to what I mentioned earlier in a question about how there would be more talked about in that regard. I don't know when that'll happen. We're going to finish Legacy. We'll finish Nova Ops. Once I finish Nova Ops, I'm going to focus primarily on finishing the Neverwinter Nights series I've had going for a while. That's just kind of been touched whenever I have a free moment. I've actually got a few episodes ready to upload for that. I want to get that into a completed state so I can start Neverwinter Nights 2 as another video. And I don't really know where I'm going to go from there. I've kind of got some pinholes in a couple of games. I've been thinking about Dawn of War, the original Dawn of War. Maybe give that a shot again. It wouldn't be a blind playthrough because I've played it before, but it has been a long while. So that's kind of where I'm at with that. So yes, I am definitely going to take a look at multiplayer. I've also been looking at the co-op campaigns. If I can find someone else who does live streaming or views and wants to do some co-op campaigning with me, who knows? Maybe I'll reach out to Day 9 and he'll do it. No. Well, if he wants to, I'm all for it. But I'm a little below his level of fame and notoriety at that. Or notoriety? Notice? I think notoriety is negative. I don't mean that. Anyway, so yeah, I'm definitely going to do that. The achievement hunting side of things, if I find an achievement that's interesting, I will. I've gone back on my own time to polish on my skills and whatnot. I've done a few of the easier achievements that I missed, where it's like, oh, I missed a mission objective that you can do on casual in like 2 minutes. All right, I'm going to knock that out real quick. But I haven't done any crazy difficult. I've even considered doing brutal campaign runs. That I'm not as excited for, because I really enjoy the gameplay and the story on hard mode. Brutal mode, I don't know if they're going to be more of, here's just making it as difficult as possible, or if it just becomes a change of how the game feels. Some games on their hardest difficulty, it's not that the game is harder, it changes what you have to react to, it changes how the game kind of behaves with you, into a more technical skill base versus reactionary base. And I don't know if that's what Starcraft 2 does, or StarCraft 2 is like, we're just going to throw a shitload more stuff at you, deal with it. So, I don't know. I'll tinker around with it. I may do a couple of like the first missions on Brutal just to see if it feels good. And if it does, then I'll make a series out of that as well. I don't know. We'll see how it goes. The ultimate point of that question is, will I play multiplayer? I do plan on it. I just don't know when. Second question from the Jirago is, what other game genres are you interested in other than strategy games? Maybe you already have some games you want to start YouTubing later. You're recommending the XCOM series, and I agree. XCOM is a fantastic series. I've tinkered with those before, and they're really good. Given what all I do, I pretty much love every genre of gaming. There's certain games I don't care for. That are perfectly fine games, which is not games that I'm interested in. But from a genre standpoint, I started gaming with RPGs and racing games. So Final Fantasies, the Need for Speed franchise, Forza Motorsports, Gran Turismo, stuff like that. I started playing all of the, and Legend of Zelda. I said one RPG and like 5 racing games. Legend of Zelda, Metal Gear Solid, a huge fan of that game. It's not an RPG, it's more stealth action, but it's got RPG elements. I'm actually looking here at my wall of more modern retro, which is like PS1, PS2, and up, as well as my old NES games, which I've wanted to get the collective going, a series where I play old NES games, but I need a good capture system for it, or find good ROMs of the games that I do own so that I can put content up for those and not feel like I'm basically pirating, because I'm pretty big against that. So I love pretty much every game. As for a game I've been looking to YouTube, that's also a difficult question. I'm down to YouTube whatever people want to see. Whenever the new Forza comes out, which I think is next month, I plan on doing some recordings of that. Even though I'm terrible at the game, I still really enjoy it. I can spend hours playing that game and be awful the entire time. But I have all kinds of stuff. I've got the Xenosaga, if we wanted to do a really in-depth, story-rich RPG that has a lot of cinematics. Zone of the Enders. I got the Fatal Frame series, but doing horror games is kind of a trope on YouTube. And plus, I should have a face cam, and I can set up a face cam. I'm not against that. Just I figure people would rather see the game than me. So I could do that. I got Dynasty Warriors. I have a ton of stuff on Steam that I could play through. For console stuff, I really need to find a good capture device. I had one that an Elgato that was really good, and then they did an update to it and it became shit. So I got to find another solution for that. So yeah, tons of stuff I'd love to play. Right now I'm into all genres. I just got to find the next thing we'll want to do. I've been focused heavily on Starcraft since we started the channel, just because that was my ultimate goal, was to be able to say I've played through the entire Starcraft campaign. So yeah, post suggestions in the response on this video. And I know people have already suggested other games before. As a matter of fact, a person who put questions up that you'll see here in a bit had suggested some games, and I might even take a look at those. I don't know. We'll see. Let's move on. Question 3. Music. What do you like to listen to? What music genres? I am, first and foremost, a metalhead. I love all kinds of metal. 80s hair metal, Finnish folk metal, black metal, death metal. You name it, I probably enjoy it. I've gone on a cruise almost every year for the past 10 years, past 7, 8 years, called 70,000 Tons of Metal, where they'll get like 40 to 60 heavy metal bands on a cruise ship in the Caribbean. And you just go around listening to music, and it is phenomenal. If you like heavy metal, it's worth checking it out. It is top quality. Aside from metal, I'm also into like EDM with like UK hardcore, hardstyle. I've gotten into recently because a friend of mine who's a DJ introduced me to that. He actually taught me the basics of DJing and got me into giving that a shot myself. And I also like Eurobeat, like basically anything you hear in Initial D. I love that stuff. So that's the general genres of music I like. But just like gaming, I can listen to just about anything that's not country. I'm not a huge rap fan, but there's some hip hop and rap artists that I'm like, yeah, all right, I can get behind that. I find with rap though, it's more, if it's not serious, I enjoy it. Like DJ Khaled, his shit, I always find it entertaining, but I'm not like, oh, he is such an artist. I'm like, not really, but it's fun and silly, and I can enjoy that. But yeah, primarily metalhead, followed by a bit of an EDM. And I jump back and forth. I was in EDM for like a couple months, and I listened to metal for a couple months. See here, next question. Number 4, reason for loving Zerg and hating Protoss. What do you dislike and like and dislike about StarCraft races? Okay. I like just the feel of the Zerg. I like their swarm tactics mentality. I like the unique way that they create their units, all from their home base. I just like the fact that it's a very unique, of all 3 races, they're the most unique in how they play, I feel. The Zerg and the Protoss and the Terrans play very similar. I mean, don't get me wrong, they're very different. But, I mean, you build this unit to build these guys. This building builds these units. This building builds these units. This building is for your research. Then you need your drone. You create your probes. You got your probes. You create your SCVs. You always have those. The Zerg, you lose your drones when you create buildings. You can only make units from the hatchery, so you can only make so many units at a time from that. So like with Terrans, for each barracks you have, you can pump out guys, but then you can also have a workshop, or not workshop, factory, war factory. I'm thinking Command and Conquer now. Whatever the vehicle factory is, punching out vehicles in parallel. For Zerg, you just build a bunch of hatcheries, and it gives the sense of this invading just swarm of creatures. And I just think they look really cool as well. They're also a very fast army, and that was, if you go way back to the beginning, the problem I have with Warcraft is it's a very slow game, and it's painful. Like, it takes like a minute to build a worker unit kind of slow. I'm exaggerating a bit there, but it's not far off. That's one of the things that kept me from StarCraft, because it is pitched to me as Warcraft in space. So I like fast-moving games. Like, you look at Command and Conquer, you want to create an infantry unit, it takes like 2 seconds. Boom, you got an infantry unit. Bam, 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 bam. And it's all about building a massive army. You feel, people use the term commander fantasy with StarCraft. For me, the real commander fantasy is in the Command and Conquer style game. StarCraft has a bit of it, but, well, it's a whole rant I can get into. But effectively, I think commander fantasy is a poor term to use for StarCraft. Especially the first StarCraft, which is the reason people are like, oh, the Okay, I'm going to go into the rant. The pathing is terrible, but it requires you to be very fine-tuned on what you tell, giving you the ultimate commander fantasy. And no, that is not part of the commander's role, telling each individual soldier where to go. It's, hey, that unit, you go over there, and you trust them to be able to make those moves with the equipment you've given them. So to me, that is what the commander fantasy, what StarCraft is more the squad leader fantasy, the original StarCraft. StarCraft 2 fixes a lot of that and gets more into the commander role, which is what I enjoy. So that rant aside, I enjoy, like I said, the Zerg because it's got that fast-paced, massive feel. Even in the first game, you felt like you had this, not necessarily a massive force that was overpowering, but a massive wave of destruction that you could run, just ripping things apart. Protoss are the polar opposite of that. From what I've seen, they're very high cost, high power singular units, which with the lore behind the Protoss, they are a smaller race in the sense of how many of them there are. The Zerg, there are hundreds and thousands of Zerg. They are endless. They are the swarm. The Protoss are very, very small in number by comparison, so they're designed to be very strong. But it starts creating the effect that they feel slow to me. And I just don't like, it's like, oh my god, do go. And it just, from what I've seen with the Protoss in StarCraft 2, it doesn't feel as slow. The fact that you can use gateways to warp people in at a point, instead of having to wait for them to take forever to get where they're going, okay, that helps. Plus, I hate playing against the Protoss more than I hate playing against the Zerg. The Protoss, or at least in the first game, Pro had the Reaver unit. That thing was a pain in the ass. My general feel for the hate for the Protoss really comes from I didn't like them in the first game, and I haven't seen enough of them in the second game to really get a feel for them. That being said, I don't dislike. This will sound weird. I don't dislike slow-moving powerhouse armies in Warhammer Dawn of War. I play the Necrons, which are the epitome of slow-moving, high-powered armies. They are very slow and very strong, depending on which version you're playing and such. But that's kind of their thing. But they're also undying. They are a swarm-style mentality. You kill them and then they get right back up. So you don't have as many swarming you, but you still get that impending sense of dread from them. Oh, hush, Bullet. My dog's over here howling. That's right, hush. But yeah, so that's my general love of Zerg, hate of Protoss feel. What do I like and dislike about each race? The Terrans, I love the fact their bases are mobile. That you can go, oh, I screwed up, let's put this over here. And that you can build an add-on and then attach it to a different building. I think that's really cool. Plus, let's be honest, siege tanks. Wonderful. I want to go back and play Heroes of the Storm now just to play Sergeant Hammer, I think she is. Which is, quick, another rant. I knew who Sergeant Hammer was. Like, oh, she's a siege tank captain. Cool. I was really hoping she was a character in StarCraft 2, and she wasn't. So that was depressing for me. I say depressing. It was more like, oh, not like, oh, that ruins the game. But, yeah. So, love the siege tanks. With the Zerg, I love... Oh, what do I hate about the Terrans? They're kind of generic. I think the biggest thing I dislike about the Terrans, this will sound silly, is they remind me of the Space Marines from Warhammer, but specifically the Ultramarines, who I hated as a faction when I played against them. So when I see them, I think those guys. But I mean, overall, I mean, they're a cool race. I think they're really neat. I love the battle cruisers as well. I don't really have anything I dislike about the Terrans. Like if I was like sitting down and like, hey, you're gonna play Terrans, I'd be totally okay with that. The Zerg, in the first game, I hated that you only got 3 larvae, but they fixed that in the second game. You can actually get up to like 5 or 6 now, apparently. I think you may only get... I think it's based on difficulty. I'm not sure. But I hate the fact that you really have to rely on the creep. I love it as a mechanic, but it bites me in the ass all the time, so I dislike that. And as for Protoss, I really like the Protoss carriers and the overarching, battle for honor kind of feel that the Protoss have. The sense of unity they have as a race, like their lore is really cool. What I dislike about it is their gameplay. So, and I'm just starting Legacy, so I'm about 6 or 7 episodes in, and I'll be honest, way better than the first game. But we'll see how they go once it becomes a challenge. Right now, they've all been really easy missions, purely on the grounds that I'm at the start of the campaign. And I don't know if the campaigns have just gotten easier over time, or if I'm actually getting better at the game. Not good, but better than I was before. and noticing that that's becoming a thing in that regard. And your last question, favorite unit of each Starcraft race, which I kind of already touched. With the Terrans, it would be the siege tanks or the battle cruisers. I'm flip-flop on those. Right now, I'm going to say siege tanks. Tomorrow, I might say battle cruisers. I'm also not... Okay, and hero unit, obviously, Raynor. But I think it's really the only hero unit they had. I thought he was kind of cool. As a character, as a playable character, he's kind of meh. But his backstory's cool. For the Zerg, oh, man. I mean, I love Hydralisks. They're like your standard soldier. They shoot in the air, shoot the ground. They're really good. They can become lurkers, which are good if I would ever remember to use them. But also, I mean, I like the Ultralisk. I like the Tarask Ultralisk. That's just fun. And of course, I think Kerrigan. Actually, I really like Dahaka as well, and Kerrigan. I mean, I like drones. I like them all. They're amazing. And Protoss. I love the carriers. I love the whole mechanic, the way the carriers work. I hate playing against them because I always end up shooting the damn drones. But I love the carriers themselves, the way they move around and stuff. I think, and the Dark Templar are pretty cool. I like stealth games. I love Metal Gear Solid, so I love the stealth mechanic of how they're always stealth and can sneak around. Again, I hate playing against that shit, but they're really cool otherwise. So, yeah, that would be my favorite units of each one of those. And before we go to the next person, I just want to say to everyone, thanks, but you asked 5, so I'm going to do it real quick. Thank you for all the questions. And for everyone so far, keep watching, and let's go to the next set of questions now. Okay, next set of questions here comes from, and again, I'm going to say it for everyone, hope I don't butcher this name, from Arya Zvitkona. If I'm wrong, I apologize. But Arya asked a couple questions. First off, congratulations on 100 subscribers, so I very much appreciate it. But the main question asked here is, would you consider playing PlayStation-only games? For example, Dark Souls, Bloodborne, Final Fantasy 13, even though not people much like that. I didn't care for it myself. Final Fantasy 10, stuff like that. Or I've even seen a couple of console, other place my heart. So the root of the question is, would I play PlayStation games? Absolutely. Like I mentioned before, I have a huge collection of games. Game collecting and such is something I'm hugely into. I used to be big into arcade repairs. And I still technically am. I just haven't done it in a while. Before moving out here to Los Angeles, I actually had about 13 arcade machines. 12 arcade machines that I sold when I moved out here because I just didn't have room for them. But the root of that, would I play PlayStation games? Absolutely. The only thing stopping me from doing that is equipment. I need a good capture card for consoles. I could capture directly off the PS4 and purchase the virtual versions of titles, but I would prefer playing them on the original hardware, playing them as they were intended at the time, as close as possible. And since I have pretty much all the consoles, I have all kinds of consoles all the way back to the Odyssey. So if there's a way I can capture the signal, I will happily record it. And if any of you know of a good quality capture device for no more than a few $100, then I would definitely look into that, grabbing one, and start doing some console stuff. I really would like to. Actually, before I moved to Los Angeles, I had everything rigged up to do console recording in my office, but my capture card ended up just basically being shit. So, looking for a new one of those. But yeah, I would very much love to do some PlayStation games. I just got to find the equipment for it. You also asked if I already played one of the other games in the series you mentioned before. Forget about it. You had another question, which I'm more than happy to answer, is what do you think about transgender people? You're transgender, would like to hear my opinion. Well, I think transgendered is, it's going to sound weird, so bear with me. It's a term I don't care about. And I don't mean that like it's bad or good. I mean, a person is a person to me. I don't care if they're transgender or not. I believe transgender should have every rights the rest of us have because they are the rest of us. We are all people. We all deserve the same basic human rights. I stand by my opinion. The way I determine if something is right or wrong is if I can do it, someone else should be allowed to do it. If there's something you can't do that I can, legally, there's a problem. The only exception I have to that is obviously drinking, stuff like that, where there's an age limit based on being an adult versus not being an adult. Clearly, there's legal ramifications to that. But if it's, oh, these people you can't use the bathroom here because you're transgender, or you can't get married because you're gay, or anything like that, that's bullshit. And I do not support that mindset. To me, transgender, yeah, you are transgender. I'm lucky. I am a straight white male. I don't have to worry about the prejudices and stuff that go into that. I mean, there are prejudices against straight white male that have been brought about because of a lot of these things where it's like the hard right is aggressive against, the LGBT and stuff. So there's groups that have spawned up to be kind of aggressive back. Neither side, I think, is good. But let's be completely honest. Growing up as a straight white male, I haven't had to deal with near the bullshit anyone in the LGBTQ community has. I hope I said that. LGBTQ. I always screw that up. But to me, I have no problem with it. Some of my good friends back in Salt Lake City, where I came from before here, they're transgender. Some of them have been transitioning. Other ones have chose not to, but prefer to be addressed a certain way. I'm fine with that. The only issue I have with that is when I've known someone for a while and they come out as transgender and have to change pronouns. I am awful about habit. So I'm bad about, I should use she now, not he. God damn it. But my friends know that I don't do it with hostile intent. So I was just like, that's what he says. She. Like, she. Sorry. God damn it. So to me, that's my view on transgender people. I think you're just people. If I'm going to say you're just people, we're all just people. So there's no point in it mattering one way or the other. I view no opinion I make on someone should ever be reflected because of their sexuality or gender identity or anything like that. The only time it should matter is if I'm like, hey, you should go talk to so and so. Y'all might hit it off, if you know what I mean. It helps to know what they're into. If I say that to a guy who's gay and I point at a girl, well, then I look like a fool. At which point he'll just go, well, I'm more interested in the guy she's with. Like, oh. Well, go talk to him. Maybe he'll get it. I don't know. So yeah, that's my view on that. And never feel shy. Like, one thing to everyone, never feel shy about asking questions. One thing I'll do on this channel is I'm always going to be forward and honest, and I will happily answer any questions that come around. So thank you for the questions, and let's move on to the next person. The next set of questions here comes from I don't know, Calmaflori. Sure, we'll go with Cal Maflori. I'm going to call you Cal. But Cal had a few questions as well. I believe 5 of them here. We're going to start with his. Actually, a lot of his are real simple. Number 1, how old are you? I am 33 years old. Really not much more to say than that. Yeah, I'm just 33 years old, been gaming my whole life. Second question is, in what domain do you work? Don't need details, just a general domain, just because you said not to ask about your work, troll face. I work in the games industry. I'm actually a game developer, software engineering specifically, but I have worked as a designer and a producer before as well. I've also been an educator in that field as well, teaching game design and development. Which is why I don't go into a whole lot of detail, A, about work, because there's stuff you just can't talk about, but B, also why I don't go into the idea of reviewing games, both because it can be a conflict of interest if it was like, oh, he works at X and he reviewed X as a great game. Bullshit. But also, I mean, as a game developer, I try to see, I should say, the good and the bad in every game. And it's not I try to look for the problems or I try to dig out something good. Every game has something that can give you a positive and a negative. Even the best game in the world, games that are my absolute all-time favorite, I can also go, but here's how they could have improved it. They did fantastic, and they may just not have had time. Maybe their underlying tech was originally set up one way, so it just could not feasibly handle it without a lot of risk. Totally fine, but there's always room for improvement. No developer will ever tell you, yeah, that game was perfect. That they'll always be, yeah, that game. Usually, if it's a game they worked on, they'll go, yeah, that game had a lot of issues. So that is what I do. I'm currently working as a software engineer within the games industry myself. Your third question: what's your favorite food? Just because you said ask if we want to ask. I'm sure I did, but that was a poor question for me to suggest. I hate food. That's just how I am. I eat to live very much. I like certain foods. I don't like other foods. I don't like avocados. I hate tomatoes. But favorite food for me is whatever's quickest and cheapest. So it changes from minute to minute. If it's like, hey, we could go out and sit down for an hour and a half and have a giant steak, or we can run by McDonald's, grab a Big Mac, and then move on to do something else, I'm going to pick the Big Mac almost every time. Just because it's fast, I can be done with it. I'm very much the odd man out in that regard. I'm very aware of that. But for me, stuff like Food Network, it's just pointless channel. It's food. Who cares? Eat it and get on with your life. Most people love food, and I respect that. But for me, I just don't care. Right this instant, I would say pizza, just because there's a pizza on the stove behind me that I ordered, had delivered earlier today. So if I'm hungry, let me drop that out. If I am hungry, I'll turn around, heat a piece of that up, and go back to what I'm doing. But yeah, it changes greatly depending on what's going on, primarily because I'm just not a food fan. Number 4. What other games do you plan for the future of this channel? Or genres of games if you aren't sure? Well, as I said before, anything and everything. I don't have any specific goal. I mean, right now the channel is primarily a Starcraft channel, purely because I wanted to start with Starcraft, and there's a lot of Starcraft content. But really, whatever everyone would like to see. I'm working on Neverwinter Nights, as I said. Once I finish it, I've got to go through all the expansions and then do Neverwinter Nights 2. So there's a lot of content there I can pull as well. Part of it, if you think about it, I mean, it was better to focus on StarCraft, because I've played Neverwinter Nights, and I'd never played StarCraft, and I was real excited at the opportunity. And let's be honest, B, StarCraft gets a lot more attention than Neverwinter. So going this route helped get some people in here, get the channel going, and get feedback on what I was doing. I don't need feedback on Neverwinter. I like the feedback. I love the discussions, but I know Neverwinter. So getting people in here to discuss StarCraft and such is really cool. And they're pushing me to try different aspects of the game and stuff and view it differently. Certain things that I thought were bad, I still may not care for, but at least I understand better as to why if I played StarCraft by myself right now, I would think the first one was awful because of the pathing issues and all that. And the story is kind of stuff like that. But the result of talking with people, understanding where they're coming from. And there was a few of y'all that I know I pissed off with certain things I said and did and stuff. And that's the joy of a communal group. And I still stand by the stuff I said. But I understand the opposing viewpoints much better and have adjusted my opinions on it accordingly with that in mind. If I could pick any game right now that I would sit down and say, next game we're playing is this. And I had my capture device for my consoles. I'm really not sure. It's really, really hard to tell. I'd probably do some Super Famicom stuff, because I have my Super Famicom and a bunch of racing games, and those would be casual little pop in, check them out. Maybe something on the Xbox or PlayStation. I really don't know. I'd have to really put some thought into it. And I've been so focused on StarCraft that I can't say. But I'm down with absolutely. Y'all want me to play Madden? I'll play Madden. If y'all want me to play, well, I'm not going to play Dark Souls. And the reason being for the whole Souls series is I love it. I think it's a great game. But I am awful at it. And I've tried to get better. And I just don't. And it would not be entertaining. You all might enjoy it the first episode where I just fail constantly. But it would never improve beyond that. And that's a game I prefer watching someone play versus actually playing myself. But man, we can play some old PlayStation games, some old Xbox games. I've got all kinds of stuff. I don't know, about between Xbox 360, Xbox, PS3, and PS2, I've got about 600 games sitting here. So we have something we could figure out. Plus, I have like 600 games on Steam. So whatever you guys want to see, we can make happen. Right now, I'm probably leaning towards Dawn of War while I work on some pop-in stuff for Starcraft with the multiplayer and whatnot, as well as Neverwinter Nights. And it all comes down to also work. We've been crunching real heavily for Gamescom recently, and we're going to be crunching again for more events in October and December. October, November, I think it is. I forget when they are, but we have another big crunch coming this year. So I got to pick something that I can record a ton of, and we have a backlog so you all don't miss an episode while I'm working, 12, 13, 14-hour days. So, yeah. And question number 5. Where are you from? The United States. You're absolutely right. You said U.S., about 95% sure. Well, you were 100% correct. I'm from the United States. Originally, I was from state of Kentucky, which is why I have a bit of an accent. But I've lived in Orlando. I've lived in Salt Lake. I've lived in Georgia briefly, very briefly. I was on a military base there. And then I'm out here in Los Angeles now. And I've loved every town. They've all had their ups and downs. But LA I was worried about, but it's actually really cool. If you ever get a chance to visit, you should. I thoroughly enjoy it. And then you have P.S. Congrats on your 100 subs. So thank you. That means a lot. I'm really excited to keep pushing to 200 and we can have even more Q&A. But yeah, that's everything from Cal Maflori. I'm going to just call you Cal. And I think we have one more person who submitted some questions, and let me pull those up right now. Actually, real quick before we go to that, I'm not going to put them up here. People can see it in the comments, but you did mention you were from Romania, Transylvania to be accurate, but we got vampires and shit. You know what? Fucking awesome. I love vampires. Vampire the Masquerade was my jam growing up, and I love vampire lore in general. I would love to visit Transylvania someday just for that reason. So that's pretty cool. That's pretty sick. Anyhow, next, on to the next person. Okay, our last set of questions come from the Little Billy Mafia. I actually can pronounce this. I'm just going to call you Billy for short. He had a couple questions, and he said, I hope didn't get them in here too late. Well, you got them here with plenty of time. So your first question is, why were Protoss my least favorite in Brood War? And hopefully before playing Legacy of the Void, what would you do to make them jive better? Because you have a feeling Blizzard may have anticipated my response. That is, first off, I want to say, since we've established I am a game developer, that is a fantastic question to ask. Anytime you don't like something, think about what would you do to improve it, and then consider why that may not have been done. For me, I don't like Protoss. Like I said, I didn't like the slower feel of their gameplay. However, what would I have done to make them jive better? Absolutely nothing. I think Protoss did exactly what they were supposed to do. They behaved exactly as they should. I didn't really have a problem with the way they were implemented or even their design, as much as my problem was I didn't like the design in general. It's kind of like you see a car that you're like, I'm not a fan of it. It does its job. It does it well. It's just not my thing. It's kind of the same thing with the Protoss in Brood War. And honestly, they feel a little bit better in Legacy of the Void. They don't feel as good as the Zerg did, but they feel better. They just felt, real, like I said, real slow. I always felt like they kind of started to fall into the trap that I felt Warhammer or the Warcraft did. It took forever to get going, it felt like. And honestly, it's no different than the other races, but it just, for some reason, it felt more extravagant with the Protoss. The Zerg, I could be building drones, pop out some Zerglings, start working with those guys, keep the drones going. Okay, now throw together something else, but keep building drones. Whereas with Protoss, it felt like I just had to keep building drones until I was at max saturation before I could even think about playing the game. And it's like, just start me at that point. Let the other guys start at that point too, and let us get to the fucking game. That's kind of the problem I had with the Protoss. And like I said, you had the same, you needed to get that saturation with the Zerg and the Terrans as well, but it didn't feel as bad. Something about the way the Protoss presented just wasn't as interesting to me. I also don't like the way that they have shields and very little armor. I understand why. It's to show that they're technologically advanced, and if you don't kill a Protoss, it's going to recharge its shields. And that's a pain in the ass, but it's cool. I don't like the fact that there's not a healing unit at all for them. And I don't know, it just felt, it's hard to explain beyond that. That Everything they did was fine. I felt like they were perfectly balanced. They just weren't for me. They weren't a style of play that I cared for. Um, their lore was interesting. I kind of like their lore, but even that, I prefer the Zergs. So they strike me a lot as the Eldar of the world, and it's like, well, I don't care. So I just wasn't impressed with them. I think maybe that's more what it was. I had just come off of playing the Zerg, which I really enjoyed, and then I got slammed into the Protoss. Had it been Protoss first, Zerg, and then Terrans, I might share the feeling about the Terrans. I've been like, Terrans are kind of shit, because I played them right after the Zerg, and I really enjoyed the Zerg. So it could just be that where they were placed in the campaign. And then it was reinforced when the Brood War, they were the first one you played. So it's like, damn it, I'm already not enjoying them, and I have to play them again to get to the Zerg? Or get to the Terran and then the Zerg. So it very well could just be bad first impression that's just never fully left. But I think they're improving them a lot. They feel a lot smoother in Legacy of the Void so far, but not my favorite. They're still my third. I'd say this. They're my third favorite of the three in StarCraft 2. However, in StarCraft 1, it was, yay Zerg. All right, cool. Terrans, fuck Protoss. Whereas with StarCraft 2, it's more, yeah, Zerg. All right, cool with the Terrans. Protoss? All right. Now, I'm not upset, but I'd rather be playing one of the other two races. So they've moved up, just not enough to overtake either of the other two races. Jump down to your next question. Number 2, have you played any other Blizzard titles heavily? You've seen my Necromancer look on D3, and I've mentioned Heroes once or twice. So interestingly, I have. Way back in the day, I would have said I wasn't a Blizzard fan. And for the longest time, I wasn't. When their titles were basically Starcraft and Warcraft 3, I wasn't a Blizzard fan. I had nothing against them. I love rock and roll racing. I wish they would do something with that IP again. And Lost Vikings was amazing, so I loved that older stuff. I think they were Interplay at the time. But when they became Blizzard and what they started punching out, Diablo 2, I'm not a fan of. I get really bored playing it. The first Diablo, I've played a couple of times. I actually own it. I bought it after playing Diablo 3, so I thought I'd give it another shot, and then never did anything with it. So I've still kind of blindly got it. So I kind of stayed away from Blizzard titles. World of Warcraft pulled me. Friend of mine who I was roommates with at the time, another developer, he picked it up, and I was like, okay, I'll buy it, but I don't think I'm going to like it. I don't like the art style. I've never really been a fan of the Warcraft art style. It works for what they're doing. It's a little too cartoony for me, but I'm fine with a cartoony graphic. It's just something about the way the cartoony look plus the serious story they give. It clashes in my mind, but it's not a huge negative. It's just more like, I'm not a fan of the art style. I don't like Warcraft because it's so slow. I honestly expected World of Warcraft to be one of these MMOs that takes you forever to level up, like Final Fantasy 11. And then I played it. I keep hitting my desk. Then I played it, and like within a couple of days, I was like level 20 something. I was like, shit, I've never gotten this far in an MMO that wasn't PlanetSide. I think I like this game. And then I ended up playing it I played it all the way up until Burning Crusade came out. And when Burning Crusade came out, the clan I was a part of kind of just fell apart. Because a bunch of us wanted to push on the content, which is where I was all about the 40-man raids, pushing on Nixia, all that stuff. Some of them wanted to go off and do PvP. I mean, basically, our entire group just shattered in where we wanted to go going forward, and the clan fell apart. And that's when I realized the reason I had been playing World of Warcraft for so long wasn't because of the game, it was because of my clan. And when it fell apart, I had no reason to play anymore. And I quit playing. Until Wrath of the Lich King had been out for a little while. It was before the 4th expansion. I think I was Cataclysm. I don't know. And a friend of mine was like, hey, they got a special going on where you can triple your leveling speed. So I hopped back in, created a Blood Elf. I was a Night Elf Druid for that first couple years. And then I made a Blood Elf Warlock. Really enjoyed her. She was cool. But never really got, like, once I got to the end of the game, the end game content, I still stand by their 40-mans for the best content they ever made. So, and that's a huge, everybody's going to yell at me for that, but that's just, I love how complicated it was. I loved having to get that many people together, organized into the right groups, have this massive army. I play an MMO to play with people, play with a ton of people, not with a few of my friends. I can play a basic game for that. MMO, I want to play with an army. And the 40 mans felt like an army. Whereas the 25 mans, kind of, but when they went to 25 mans, they didn't really do anything different than just scale everything down. And that just kind of became crap. They do a lot of interesting stuff with it now, but I'm too nostalgic for the 40 mans. I went back and played when they reopened Molten Core as a 40 man level 100 instance. I rejoined, got to level 100, and ran that while it was live. Shut it down. I went, all right, I'm done. And I haven't played since. And I'm pretty much done with World of Warcraft. And nothing against the game. It's a great game. I think it's just finally showing its age. And I'm really excited to see what Blizzard does next if they do another MMO. I've played Starcraft a lot, and I really enjoy it. Overwatch I thought was great, and I avoided Overwatch at first because I didn't think people were like, "Oh, it's an FPS, but it's like a MOBA." I'm like, "Oh, I'm shit at MOBAs, but I like FPSs." I'm gonna wait, and then I saw a bunch of the character videos and stuff, and Blizzard does an amazing job with their cinematic team, and I found, you know what, screw it. Sat down, bought it. Loved it. I play primarily as Mercy and Diva and Orisa now. I like Orisa as well, but I actually haven't played in forever because I've been focusing on StarCraft. Diablo 3, I've played, I got 200 or 300 hours into that. Really enjoyed it. People hated it when it came out. I thought it was great, though the Inferno difficulty was a nightmare, or whatever the hardest one was. Then they redid it, and I think it's a great game now. I really like the Necromancer. I haven't done much with it, but I really enjoyed the Let's Try video I did. I've tinkered with them a bit more since then. And if that's something people would like to see, like a season run of D3, I would do that. But yeah, no, I've played quite a bit of Blizzard titles by now. I've actually played through Warcraft. People have asked if I would do a Warcraft thing on here. I'm like, it's not my thing. A Warcraft 3. I've played through all the way through Warcraft and the Frozen Throne. And I won't lie, cheated because I wanted to know the story, but I could not stand the gameplay. It was just too slow for me. So I cheated my way through it, got to see the story, and I was like, all right, I'm good to go. I mean, I played some of it legit, but I'd get to the point where it was like, all right, I'm tired of waiting for my builder units to take forever to spawn, cheat, get them out there, good to go. So I won't go back and play that. If they released Warcraft 4, I'd give it a shot because they've impressed me with what they've done with their other titles. So I'd give it a fair shot, but won't go back and play. And Warcraft 2 I've never even played. I don't think I've ever even seen Warcraft. Warcraft 2 and 3 are the only ones I ever hear talked about. So I don't even know what Warcraft looks like. But yeah, so that's my experience with Blizzard titles as a whole. And you have one more question here. On the Tarask mutation quest in StarCraft 2, you seem familiar with the D&D origins of the Ultralisk variants. Got any tabletop tales to tell? Terrific, terrible, or terrifying? Let me take a quick sip of my drink, and we will join in that. So, yes, I am very familiar. I say very familiar. I'm pretty familiar with the Tarask from D&D, specifically 3.5 variant. For those unfamiliar with it, and it's been a long time since I've read the monster manual for this, but the Tarask in D&D, if you killed it, which if I remember correctly, you had to wish to kill it, and a wish spell is very powerful in D&D, but if you killed it, it would just come right back to life if you didn't use a wish to also wish it stayed dead. And it would destroy towns. Like, you would do a dice roll for how many years until it woke up kind of deal. This was the biggest baddie you could possibly have from the dungeon, or the DM's guide and the monster manual in 3.5 D&D. It's in 5th edition as well, but it's hella scaled back. It's not nearly, it's still a monster, but it's not near what it was in 3.5. A DM friend of mine who ran a game out in Kentucky for years, they had a game that went on, it was legendary in how long it went on in my hometown. He actually had his group fight against a Lich Tarask, a Tarask that had been possessed by a Lich. So it had all the powers of a Lich and being undead, but it was also a Tarask. So that would be horrific. That same DM had DM'd games for me down in Florida. And, there's tales. I could probably think of some stuff. I'd say one of my favorite humorous tales was a friend of mine I think we lived in Salt Lake at the time. Yeah. He was just starting to DM a game for us. And we were using Pathfinder, actually. We weren't in D&D, but anyone will tell you Pathfinder is D&D 3.75. We we were doing the Kingsmaker, I think it's Kingsmaker campaign arc, from the books they had released. And the very first encounter, like the hook encounter to get you into what's going on, is you arrive in this vast wilderness at an outpost that this dude and his wife run. And he keeps getting robbed by bandits. They just show up, take what they want, they basically make him pay protection, and then leave. And when we showed up, he's like, "Hey, can you stop these bandits, because they're harassing us, and we'd like to not be harassed if you all are going to work on scouting this land that eventually we would turn into a kingdom." Well, and we were like, "Yeah, sure, of course, because we're level 1. We want to make sure, hey, get that experience, and we get some loots, and we get this guy to like us, and we'll have a place to stay. This is all perfect." Well, apparently, the leader of this group was also the information hook for the next place to go. I was playing a cavalier, which is a mounted combatant. Basically, I use a lance and a sword. And if I'm on a horseback, I have a lance, and I get to use couched lance damage, which is, I think like a lance does like 2d6. And if you can hit on a charge with it couched, you do another 2d6 or something like that. I don't remember. It's been a long time. Or you double the damage, I think. I don't remember. The fact is, couched lance damage was no joke. Like, if I hit another, like a CR1 creature with couched lance damage, there's a chance I killed him. The problem, or like would drop him to 0, but I have to have a running start, I have to be on a horseback, and I have to have the lance to catch. There's a lot of, and you have to be trained in lances. So there's a lot you had to have set up. And if I had to get off my horse or I couldn't charge, the lance was crap. So I'm hiding inside the stable. People show up. The guy was, yeah, hold on, let me get your stuff. And he goes and knocks on the door, and I kick the door open with my horse, and I charge out. That's right at their leader. I got it. And he's like, "Well, it's a surprise round. You can only move half distance." I'm like, "That's fine. On a charge, I have just enough room to get to the leader." He goes, "All right, roll damage." This is the first dice roll of this entire campaign. He goes, roll to hit. All right, roll. Natural 20, which for those of you who don't know means is a critical threat in Pathfinder. So you automatically hit. You're going to hit no matter what their AC is, and you're threatening to do a critical hit. So he's like, "Oh, crap, I got to get the character sheet out for that character, but you obviously hit. Go ahead and roll to confirm." In Pathfinder, you have to roll a second attack on a critical threat. If that attack would hit, then you critical. If the attack wouldn't hit, then you only regular hit. So I roll the second die roll of the game, and I roll a second natural 20, which means I just guaranteed I crit, because it was an auto hit on the critical confirm, guaranteed crit. So I bust out couch lance critical, the first character of the first person we hit. I don't remember how much, but it was like 48, 50 points of damage at level 1, which gives you an idea. Typically level 1 you're doing like 12 maybe. I killed that character. Not killed, dropped them to 0, and they were unconscious. Our DM was very much, no, they're dead. They were at more than negative their constitution score. They are completely dead. We would have to go, find a way to resurrect them. And they were holding information we absolutely had to have, or we didn't absolutely have to have, but it was very critical we get in order to proceed along the plot line. So our DM was like, "God damn it." Carry on to the next day, or next session. We're fighting in the forest. We come across some more bandits. And we're beating the shit out of the leader. And our summoner has his familiar jump, critical bite this dude, and rolls high enough to flat kill him as well. So we flat out killed 2 critical characters that we needed to get information from. Our DM's like, "Stop killing important people." We're like, "Well, stop letting them die." And it kept happening. You would just constantly crit. Oh, man. That's just with that character. And that character never really got very far. My main character, Nigel, who was my first ever human fighter, who carried 12 different weapons. The only character my DM ever said, you need to worry about encumbrance, because I was strength 18 and I had so many weapons and armor that I was nearly encumbered. And that means you can carry like 400 pounds. And I was pushing the limit. I was like 10 pounds below encumbered. So that character, tons of stories about him. And maybe later on I can do a series with the Neverwinter Nights series. Ask over there. Maybe on a video I can share some more D&D tales in that regard. But yeah, so that's just a couple of interesting D&D stories. Yeah, I play tons of tabletop, so yeah, ask questions on that in the future, and I'll definitely answer those. You'll get me talking about that stuff all day long. One other question that is not here, but has been asked by a few people, both on Reddit, a couple other chats and such, is I made a comment in one of my recent videos that I felt the story in StarCraft 2 was better than the story in StarCraft. And I've had people very confused as to why I would think that, since apparently the going view is that the story in StarCraft 2 is worse than it was in StarCraft. So I'm going to take a minute, since this is our celebratory episode, and explain my meaning behind that. This isn't a question asked by anyone. This is just a bonus question in general for all of you. What do I mean when I say the story in StarCraft 2 is better than the story in StarCraft? Well, for one, I'm actually wording it very poorly. The presentation of the story is better in StarCraft 2 than it is in StarCraft. StarCraft 2 follows its story and makes me give a damn about the characters involved. I never really cared about any of the characters in the original StarCraft. They were just kind of there for the purposes of pushing the story along. StarCraft 2, however, actually you learn more about the characters. You get to feel more of their emotion of what's happening, and it's presented in a better way. You actually get more of a story out of it. StarCraft 1, really, if you go back and play it and blank everything you know about the game, because I mean, I went in knowing nothing, and look at just what the game tells you, it doesn't tell you very much. You've got very little actually going on. You're like, okay, we got this now happening. Cool, let's go do that mission. Okay, now what happened to this? Cool. It's very, hey, here's some stuff. All right, go do this. There's very rarely major character development points. Kerrigan's transformation was the biggest one that I can think of. But, like, for example, I can remember a lot of what happened in Wings of Liberty. I could barely tell you anything major that happened in the entire Brood War game, StarCraft 1 and Brood War, because it wasn't very important, or at least didn't feel important, and they didn't tell you much. Now, there's a lot of hinted story that I'm sure they expound on later in external sources, but it's never really told. And I understand that there's a couple of Blizzard release campaigns outside of those that help build out that story, but it would have to do a lot of work to really build up the story as it said. So I just feel that the way they present the story, the way the stories are organized and focused, is better done in StarCraft 2. The most important thing, and when it comes to a story, this is something I'm a huge stickler about. I have to give a damn about the people involved. If you can't get me on that, then I don't think the story is going to be that good. And it may have great potential. StarCraft 1 had great potential, but I never really cared much about the characters. Most of the characters. And like Tassadar, he's alright, but I don't. All I remember him doing is killing himself by flying into the Overmind. I know he did more, but I can't remember any of it. It never stood out to me. Zeratul actually became a really cool character in throughout what I've played so far in StarCraft 2. His shit seemed much more important now. So, yeah, I mean, that's kind of my view in that regard, is I feel I've enjoyed the story of StarCraft 2 more because they've actually gotten me into a situation where I care about the characters involved. Kerrigan's still my favorite character, and I hate saying that because she's like the staple. Oh, everyone loves Kerrigan, but I get why. She's fucking awesome. But I like Raynor a bit more now, and Matt Horner. I think he's actually a really cool dude. So they really build out a lot more of the characters, and I think it's really cool the way they have done that. So that's my view on that. And that is also all the questions. Yay! I should find a way to input like confetti pops. Yay! Yeah. hope you all have enjoyed this video. This is actually a really long video. It's probably going on an hour. I don't know, because I've been doing each set of questions as a different cut. So this particular set of questions is like 23 minutes. Yeah. Hope you all have enjoyed it. I want to personally thank everyone that gets to watch this for checking out this channel. It means a lot to me that y'all are enjoying it thus far, and that y'all had questions you wanted to ask. I was really worried no one would ask it. Like, no, we don't give a shit. It's like, oh, well, okay, I guess I won't do a Q&A. But y'all came forward. Lots of questions, lots of really fun questions. I enjoy answering them, working back and forth. I might even try doing some live streaming stuff well into the future. I've got plans for it, but it's going to take some major setups and a lot of free time on my part that I just don't have right now. But that could eventually happen. And if it does, then I'll get to communicate more directly with all of you as well, which will be really cool. Plus, we'll get to pull people over from Twitch and make them one of us. Pull them into the swarm. But, yeah. So, once again, thank you all for your continued support. It means a lot to me. Be sure to, share the channel with friends if anyone that's interested. I try to share over on Reddit with the Starcraft subreddit, which I've found apparently a lot of them don't know what a blind playthrough means, and they think I'm playing it literally blindfolded. So that caused a lot of stir up. So if you tell someone it's a blind playthrough, I guess explain what blind means. They may not know. It's a popular term amongst Let's Players, but apparently not so much amongst competitive Starcraft players. But share with people and share your thoughts with me. I always want feedback, good or bad. What games you want to see and stuff like that. And as always, keep being the amazing audience you have been, and I'm sure you will continue to be. Tune in as we continue our Legacy of the Void and Neverwinter Nights campaigns. And until next time, take care.